welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. Now, this is of a movie that I picked up today, actually. I stopped by the store. I actually wanted to order something when I went in there. And I was looking around, I found a couple things. The first thing I picked up, The Feast, which I have reviewed. I saw this on Hulu, but I was a big fan of it. I really liked this film, and I do have a collection of these more modern, elevated, artsy horror films, especially A24 IFC. Really like The Feast. I actually didn't know that it was coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. And I also picked up this film, which it was released in the film circuit in 2019 and then was actually released to streaming on Shudder in 2020. A lot of reviews say 2020. I'm just going to put 2019 because that's when it was playing in festivals. And I actually thought this was something else that I really wanted to see. And then on the drive home, I realized what I did. But it wasn't a complete waste because I actually really liked this film. And there is a lot of great things to say about it. And that is 2019's The Beach House. And yes, when I saw this on the shelf, I was thinking of that newer movie that came out recently, The Night House. And I was like, oh, cool, The Night House. Now I can finally see it because I heard it was supposed to be really good. I really wanted to see it. I liked the trailer. And then it was in the car on the way here. It hit me like, oh, that's The Night House. What the hell is The Beach House? But I was reading some of the reviews on it, like a cosmic, trippy triumph, genuinely scary, bloody disgusting. Masterfully executed, beautifully shot terror. But why, though? That's who said that. And fast-moving, effective, Lovecraftian horror, screen anarchy. It is very Lovecraftian. Of course, I'm a big fan of Lovecraft. I have the complete works up there. And it's not based on any specific work of his. It is more so just the kind of sort of cosmic creature, especially from the depths of the ocean. It is done very well. Yeah, I do like these Lovecraftian films. I think the last one I saw, or at least the last one I reviewed, was 2019's Underwater with Kristen Stewart, which was actually pretty fun. And yeah, I really enjoyed this film. It actually reminds me, as far as the plot and trying to explain what happens, it does remind me of this film because it does leave so much open as to what is happening, but there are enough subtle hints as to make it definite as to why this is happening. I read one review that said this is basically a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I don't know if they're just making a comparison. Knowing the internet, they probably think remake is like a subjective term where you can just apply it however you want. It's not. Either something's a remake or it's not. But Body Snatchers is an alien movie. This is from the depths of the ocean. But it's kind of like if you take John Carpenter's The Fog, Lovecraftian, cosmic, sort of gooey creatures, and the reasoning behind Shyamalan's The Happening, as bad as that movie is, it make a very well-made, well-shot, well-acted movie. Then you get The Beach House. And it was written and directed by Jeffrey A. Brown, where this is his directorial debut. And I've been seeing quite a few films recently from first-time directors, like The Beach House, this one. Raw, which of course that director went on to do, I think it's pronounced Titane. Raw was very good for a first-time director. Saint Maud was a directorial debut. I believe Censor was as well. Very talented and very well done debuts. Stars Leona Liberato, Noah LaGrosse, Marianne Nagel, which I think she was a first time actress in this, and she actually did a good job too. And Jake Weber, who I think people will recognize from quite a bit of things. He was the TV Best Buy salesman in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. I know that Liana Liberato has been in a few horror films. Uh, there's in the film Trust, Trespass, Erased, Haunt. So yeah, she's been in a few. Oh, also this is kind of like maybe The Happening wasn't the best analogy, but also the found footage film The Bay, kind of like that as well, or has some similarities. Now the cinematography was done by Owen Lavelle, and the cinematography is one of the best parts. There are some excellent shots in this movie. I kind of wish it went with the cover that was in the original poster that you saw in the thumbnail. There is a great shot like that, just like a ground level of like the beach steps, perfectly symmetrical, like a Kubrick shot with her climbing up. There's a shot, this huge wide shot of someone just walking into the ocean, and the camera just holds on them until they're pretty much so far out that they just disappear. Very well shot. Also, with the lighting, it does get very cosmic and trippy. At first, I thought it was just because they eat some edibles. They have some weed chocolate. And I thought it's because they were just tripping out. But a lot of cool scenes where, like the colors are separating. Like when we see Liberato's character, we'll see her, but then there'll be like her in green, then red, then blue. Kind of like quadruple vision, but each one's a different color. I'm not quite sure what that effect is called. But a lot of cool colored, cool effects, very visual. And the music, which was very atmospheric as well, was done by Rolly Porter. And it's only 88 minutes, and it goes by very quickly. Um, it has an 81 on Rotten Tomatoes. I would definitely say it deserves that. I wanted to see what the budget was, but it doesn't really tell. But anyway, the story, yeah, that's kind of like the original poster, but more zoomed out. Basically, and this kept me guessing for quite a while. Where's this movie going? The very first shot, it takes us deep into the ocean where there's some sort of, not really a volcano, but I guess like a spore or something just spewing this fog from the ocean floor. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And then by the time things really started happening in the film, I kind of forgot about that shot. So I was wondering, because basically we have Leonardo Liberato plays Emily, Noah LaGrosse plays her boyfriend Randall, which at times he kind of looks like a young Tom Hardy. He might have been the weakest actor out of our four actors, but he was still serviceable. And I'm sure people will say it's slow. Not the pacing, but just because it does take a while before something to happen. It is a lot like The Feast, but, it takes time to develop. And again, I like movies that take their time, but also leave enough ambiguous. It doesn't spoon feed us anything. But they're dating. I guess their relationship has been kind of rocky. They're supposed to be going to his family's beach house to kind of try to work on things. But when they get there, there's this older couple who's already there, who they don't know, but they know who he is. They're old friends of the family. So they decide to have dinner together. And right off the bat, the couple seems kind of off. There's something off-putting about them. Like, they're very just like, oh, wow, yeah, great. Like, they are very nice, but like when they're sitting around the table, they're talking about college, because I think Jake Weber, who plays Mitch, he's a professor of some kind. So they're talking to Emily, who, she's an undergrad, wants to go to uh, post grad to be an astrobiologist, and she explains what astrobiology is, thus explaining essentially what's happening in the movie, why everything is happening. And then when he says he's a dropout, it really changes the mood. Even Jane, the wife, kind of starts crying and trying to like talk through it. And I was just like, is this going to be like one of those movies where they have to escape from this couple? Is it going to kind of be like The Visit or something? Because also Emily notices that there's a shit ton of medications in the cabinet. So I was like, is this just going to be like your typical kind of thriller where she's got to survive this getaway essentially with this couple? But no. And then they run out of wine. Randall suggests, hey, I got some edibles. Let's all take some. So they do. Jane gets up and wanders off. And we get this cool scene where it's all like trippy and kind of like, moves her hand, and you kind of see like each kind of stage. All these blue with lights. Very well done. I like what they did with the lighting. Kind of reminded me of stuff you would see in like Mandy or Color Out of Space, which is a Lovecraft story. And everyone just kind of gets messed up. And then the next day, they can't find Mitch. Jane she's got like all these weird reactions all over her. And she's non-responsive, and like she's having a hard time walking. They help her to bed. They decide to go to the beach, and Randall gets sick, runs back to the house to shit, which they all ate oysters except for Emily. And so by this time, I'm still thinking, is this just a weird, odd couple? Because then when she's alone at the beach, Mitch just shows up, and he just starts talking about, like, when you really love someone and you see them change in front of you, it's scary. It scares me to death. You're so fortunate. It's so beautiful out. But he seems disconnected and off. It's just like, I kept thinking, is this like a psychotic couple still? And then he just says, well, I think I'm going to go for a swim. And that's when we get that great shot where just this wide shot, he's perfectly centered, walks all the way down to the water and just keeps going until slowly, until his head is just this little black dot, and then just he's gone. And Jake Weber's out of the movie forever. And so then I started thinking, are these like water people? Is there some sort of like water humanoids? Like, I didn't want to say or think mermaids, but because even when they're getting high off the edibles, Mitch is doing dishes and he's touching the water. He's like, soft water. And so I just started thinking, like, are they like some sort of mermaid or something like that? Fish people? And so then Emily sees all these weird jellyfish just lined up down the beach with like these black spines, and she steps on one, it gets a worm in her foot, which she has to go home and pull it out. And the scene where she pulls it out, very well done. The effects in this, all practical, which is great. There is a big effect towards the end where if you take like the melting sheriff from Jason Goes to Hell and like the Grant monster from Slither, maybe a little smaller than that, but it kind of looks like that. And again, all practical, looks great, very eerie. It has a great element of body horror to it as well. And then this fog rolls in. The fog rolled in the night before, started rolling again. Randall is sick. she go she runs back in, finds Randall's. Well, after she takes the worm out of her foot, sees Randall's all messed up. And then Jane comes down. Her eyes are white. She's crawling around trying to grab him. And then they don't know what to do. And then the rest of the movie is them trying to get away. But they they did establish that this sort of beach house community, this small beach house community, has pretty much been a deserted recently. And the scope of the film is very small. It's it the scope is similar more to like Night of the Living Dead. It's very narrow. We don't really get a sense of just how big this threat is. I mean, even The Fog, either one, John Carpenter's or The Piece of Shit, we do get the sense that, okay, this is everywhere. Even though we do get news broadcasts, radio broadcasts, saying that there's something in the fog, barricade yourself inside, don't breathe in the fog. Excuse me, but we still don't see much of this town or much of the infected because, we see there's something in the water, there's something in the fog. By this point, like when they go to use the sink, it's very gelatinous when it comes out. I'm going to say spoilers here because this was a movie for me that did keep me guessing, and it does have a surprising ending. So I don't really want to spoil it for anyone, but I highly do recommend this. I mean, it's kind of minimal on the body horror. I mean, it's definitely there, but it's not like on The Fly or Carpenter's The Thing or something like that. It is Lovecraftian, these gelatinous weird creatures from the deep. It is an eco-horror because of why this is happening. The only thing I will say is we get the idea that ocean temperatures are rising. So these, essentially, these organisms that could no longer live in the depths of the ocean are now being pushed to the surface, meaning these jellyfish, which I wonder how much of this movie actually is scientifically accurate, because I was reading something about how there were sort of prehistoric jellyfish that could stab like a worm into someone and infect, or into a predator or host, and the worm would go in them and infect them. But and how scientists believe that there are some like prehistoric organisms dormant at the bottom of the ocean floor. And the whole dinner conversation about what she wants to do as an astrobiologist does pretty much explain all that about organisms in the harshest environments at like the beginning of a planet, and can it survive in some new planet. It was all very interesting. I was not very good at science, but I do like how it ties in, especially being an eco-horror film, which I think the last eco-horror film I saw was probably In the Earth, which was really good. I might say I liked this one more. But I just want to see what exactly that said. Yeah. It kind of... So now it's like they're... And some people have seen this as like a revenge film, like because of what humans are doing to the earth, causing temperatures to rise. It's these organisms are now getting revenge on people and affecting them. I guess you can look at it that way. But very well shot, very well done visuals, well done practical effects, even though there's not a lot. Very minimal on explanations, but again, that's more the film I like. I don't like to be spoon-fed. Surprising ending, well acted, and it does have a very narrow, focused scope. I think if the scope was any larger, it would have felt more like a zombie movie. So I do like how how narrow the scope was. But I'm gonna get into spoilers now. But I do recommend this. Uh, so I've read some reviews where I guess people were completely lost on how it ended and why people are kind of infected differently. And I guess they're infected by how they get it. Like when Jane is high and walking around outside and she's in like the blue light forest, she touches this spore on a tree, and then that's how she gets infected. So when they see her the next morning, she's covered in all these spores. Um, Mitch, I remember exactly how Mitch got infected. I think his was also from the oysters because all three of them, except for Emily, ate oysters. So um, that was the only one out. Oh, when he went out to look for Jane, he ingested too much fog. And so I'm guessing that's why, he just kind of walked and just kept walking. Uh, Randall ingested the oyster, and eventually he does throw up the oyster, and it kind of looks humanoid, but then his eyes go white, same as Jane's. Emily, since she pulled the worm out of her foot, it didn't really infect her as, I guess, the infection wasn't as potent or as strong as theirs. But eventually, when she sees that Randall is completely sick and probably not going to come back, she does hit him with a oxygen tank because they do find refuge in this one house where they hear the broadcast, and that's where they see that Jason Goes to Hell, Grant monster kind of mass devouring this other guy. I'm guessing the inhabitant of the house with like the security or like patrol, whoever it was, because they find that truck first. Then the guys inside, but she finds these oxygen tanks and realizes, okay, this is how we can get around outside. But she mercy kills Randall, finds keys, gets in the car, tries to drive, can't see through the fog, crashes, can't get the oxygen tank out of the car. So then she just kind of crawls. The fog, the infection just kind of overcomes her, and she passes out. And we get this really cool. It's like all these superimposed forms of water, like whether it be like fizz and bubbles, like condensation or waves, all just kind of layer on top of each other, with the sound of waves. And then it just ends with Emily lying on the beach. Her eyes are pale, and she's telling herself, "Don't be scared." And then a wave comes over. When the wave goes back, she's completely gone. Now, I'm guessing since she was infected by the jellyfish, and with jellyfish, a lot of times when they hit the surface, they disappear. So, or more or less, they dissolve. So, I'm guessing, kind of like how everyone else was infected, similar to how they got infected. Since hers was from a jellyfish, I guess it would make sense that she kind of dissolved or disappeared. But uh, but then again, if she did pull the worm out from the jellyfish, that kind of would have stopped the infection. So you think the fog would have been how she got infected. So even then, fog can evaporate or dissipate or whatever. So, uh, and then just cut to black. I was surprised that she died. They killed everyone off, and pretty much showing that this eco threat is gonna continue on. But yeah, it has enough there that okay, ocean temperatures are rising. these ancient microbes or whatever are coming to the surface. They've been dormant forever. It's harmful to humans or vengeful to humans, and that's how they get infected. That's pretty much what's happening. Uh, and yeah, it's like these Lovecraftian creatures. It's very cosmic, especially with the lighting and visuals, which at first I thought was just because they're tripping out on edibles, but I guess it does tie into the plot. But well acted, has great shots. And like I said, it's not quite ambiguous enough to draw your own conclusions. There is some a wiggle room, maybe not quite as much as say The Feast, but there's definitely enough subtle hints to let us know what's going on. And like, subtlety is key. I love subtlety. Also, just the way the character of Emily explains what astrobiology is during the dinner, that pretty much explains what's happening in the movie. But again, at that time, we don't quite know that. But I thought this movie was very well made, very enjoyable. It's my kind of. It's not really slow paced. It takes a while for something to happen. You know, takes a while. For the more Blumhouse audiences, I guess. But I really liked it. And again, doesn't spoon feed all the answers to us. It's subtle enough, almost ambiguous, but all the answers are there. And yeah, I was bummed that I didn't get the Night House, but I am glad that I saw the Beach House. So that's my review for that, and thank you for watching.